You're listening to the Manuscript Podcast, the story of us as told by Taylor Swift. As Taylor tells us, she may reread the manuscript from time to time, but the story isn't hers anymore. It's ours. On this show, we open up the manuscripts of our lives through the chapters that Taylor Swift has written in them. And here with me today to share her story is novelist and fellow Swiftorian, JP Roth. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me, Caitlin. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. I discovered JP when we became mutuals on TikTok. She creates incredibly insightful content, dissecting Taylor's work, talking about the current goings on in Swiftie politics and her impact on culture and the media. And as soon as I saw her videos, I just knew that she would be a perfect guest to come share her Swiftie journey with us on the podcast. So, Joanna, you have been a lifelong Swiftie, but you had a little bit of a less than traditional upbringing, right? That sort of led you down the path to Taylor's music. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I was actually born into a cult called the Children of God. My parents were some of the leaders of this cult, and it was a really secluded, like you lived in communes. I won't go much into it as far as how we grew up, but I will say that we were allowed like no outside influences of any kind, what they considered system influences. So like no system music. The music that we listened to had to be cult music. So I would say that I thought about it even more since our phone call. And I would say that for the debut album, that was very interesting to me because it was really one of the first times I had ever got to hear music I chose on my own, like where I heard something on the radio. I had finally escaped the call and gotten away, and I was on my own. I was young with a fake ID, trying to survive in a very strange world, which was very foreign to me. I could hardly understand what people were saying around me. I grew up in Asia. I spent many years in Japan, in Europe, in Africa. I literally didn't come over to America. I was here for the first time when I was 16 and then again when I was 25. So when I was 16, I could hardly understand what anyone was saying. I had grown up so strange and so secluded and so tortured in so many ways. It was a really, really horrible cult. It's been studied by a lot of psychologists. It was a brainwashing, extremely abusive. They used a lot of corporal punishment. It was all kinds of, it was the worst. So I would say that the first person, that I ever really heard and thought, oh my God, I like that just straight out of the blue was Taylor and was Teardrops on my guitar. I remember thinking that's debut, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's her first. That's like her second single ever. Yeah.
Okay, so I will say that song was definitely the first song that I heard that was a system song where I thought I can't understand anyone around me, but I understood that. Like I understood her. And it really clicked with me. And I do remember that for me was like, I forgot to tell you that one thing, but that was a very brilliant moment for me with first connecting with her.
That's incredible. And so like you stepped out into the world and that was the first time that you were like, this is something that I choose.
Yeah.
That is a part of me. That's amazing. And
because everything that I was given was like, I was told what to watch and what to read and what to listen to. And I was told what to like and what I didn't like and what was this and what was that. And you were completely stripped of your ability to really make any choice that didn't line up with their theologies and psychologies, which was how they kept 40,000 people controlled.
Of course. Yeah. Well, and one of the really interesting things about that is the cult that you were involved in, a lot of the adults in that cult were actually very prevalent people in Hollywood and in the film industry. Isn't that correct? So it's crazy to me that they were part of the system, right? In fact, they were profiting constantly from the system. But they wanted to keep their kids away from the system that they were immersed in. That is just fascinating.
Yeah, we had members of Fleetwood Mac. We had members, there are so many people that are involved in this that I'll mention the names that were in the media, but like Rose McGowan and Joaquin Phoenix. So it was already a very art cultural cult. And in that culture, they rejected everything that they had ever known and kind of broke it down to what was just Jesus kind of talk and speak. And interestingly enough about Taylor, what I found was very interesting in her music was I just heard her own voice so strongly. And as someone who
Mhm.
wanted to be an author myself and who was in writing at the time, I'm older than her. I'm like jillion years older than her, but I heard her lyrics and I heard her sound and I heard her heart in her music, and it really hit me. I definitely. And then I went to the Grammys with some friends that were part of Hollywood that I had grown up in the cult with, in the Children of God with, and I saw her play 15, and I thought I was going to die. Like I literally had tears pouring down my face. I've never felt so seen. Since then, she has seen me deeper many a
Mhm.
time, but that moment, I swear, she looked in my eyes, and I just cried so hard. And I hadn't really ever. I was so punky, and my hair was all crazy, and I was doing wild stuff, and I was a wild girl. I had really gone through a crazy life, and there was a lot in me that was broken. And I
Yeah.
think broken people have a hard time feeling seen. And I think Taylor had a magical way of just seeing me, or I felt so completely heard, and I from someone I had never even met, and it was a
Yeah.
pretty life-changing experience for me. And I've tried to see her at every chance I get because I'm really lost.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful. At the time, actually, Miley was the superstar on the stage. I remember everybody around me was whispering, Miley's going to perform, Miley's going to perform. And I was super excited to see whoever was going to perform. I'd actually seen Miley perform before, so I was quite excited. And
Mhm.
then Taylor was there, and nobody else was there.
Right. She just takes over the room. Absolutely. And I think, part of what I hear you talking about as well is, you know, you came from a background where you really weren't supposed to have any sense of self,
Yeah,
you know, and Taylor ultimately, like all of her music is about putting that sense of self at the forefront and communicating those deepest parts of self. So through her music, that sort of helped you maybe retrain yourself to allow yourself to put your personal feelings and your own thoughts out into the world and ahead of what the church had taught you to think.
that's right. And also, I felt like I always fought my upbringing.
Mhm.
I had a lot of abuse, physical, mental, just everything on me. I carry the scars to this day because I was a fighter, and because I wanted to say my truth, and I didn't believe, that aliens were coming out of the sky on white horses. Like I just didn't think. And even if it was going to happen, even if Armageddon is in the offing, like I just didn't feel like it personally affected my growth or my soul or who I was. So I fought with them a
Mhm.
lot, a lot, a lot, to be heard, to have my voice heard at all. And the cult was also very, it really promoted the patriarchy in a lot of ways. Women were treated just very awfully in the cult. There was just horrible sexual abuse. A lot of it did happen to, like, I'm from a family of 10. I have 10 brothers and sisters. My older
Wow.
sister is 9 years older than me, and she experienced a completely different cult. A duchess sued the cult to try and get her daughter and her son out. Her son was going to be a duke. I'm not going to say any
Mhm.
names, but basically the cult was sued in the 80s, which actually persisted into the 90s. It was like an 11-year, million trillion dollar lawsuit that was tried by the High Court in England. And a lot of the sexual abuse did have to stop because the cult had so much more. They got very fearful. They SWAT teams came to the houses and took the kids and stuff like that. So,
Wow.
there was a lot that had happened before. But with me, it was really just more a lot of physical abuse. And it was every time I spoke out or spoke back or had any form
Mhm.
of opinion of any kind. And even
Right.
now to this day, I think Taylor's still fighting to have her opinion heard. And it's just, I think, a struggle a lot of women go through. And she's so powerful with how she's put it out. And I think it's given me a lot of bravery in my own writing, which I wouldn't have had from my upbringing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think she helps a lot of us find that kind of strength, and even more so for a lot of young women who are never taught that they have the option to speak
That's
out.
right. Because it's not just how I
Absolutely.
grew up. Lots of women are taught to have no voice. And it's even
Exactly.
in small things in society. Like it's psychologically put in just through movies and even books that we read that kind of teach women the way to be, the polite way.
Right, right. Well, even
Ladies
recently,
always
I've
rise above.
Of course. Ladies always rise above. Even recently, myself, I've been having a lot of issues at work, and I work in a fairly male dominated environment. And
Yeah.
I'm having to go to my managers and stand up for certain things that are going on between me and other coworkers at work right now where I'm feeling disrespected. And it's really difficult for me every time I step into my manager's office and put my foot down, because in my head I have this narrative of, oh well, he's just going to think you're a bitch now.
That's right.
um and yeah, like Taylor
It's
said when she
really
was writing The
difficult.
Man, the bitches, because that's what they get to call us, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, in
uh,
my industry too. If I was a man, I'd be the man. I mean, I'm in
right.
in comics, it is definitely a very male dominated industry. And it's very difficult to be a
Hmm.
woman in this industry. And I think for Taylor, again, to bring, because everything goes back to her. Eric says,
Of
my
course.
husband says, I just randomly quote scripture during the day. He's like, sometimes he's like, babe, you're quoting scripture again. Just for lyrics, like, babe, you're quoting scripture.
It's true though. I
But
love
really, a
that.
lot of those things that she says, and even what happened to her, the whole thing that went down with Taylor over the last 6 or 8 years, they wouldn't have done
Mhm.
that to a man. And I think her songs, the reason it resonates with women all over the world, and I will say one thing for this podcast, this whole white suburban women, like we need to make that die. There are women all over the world of all beautiful colors of the beautiful spectrum who love and die over her music because they hear their voice in her voice. They hear their dreams in her dreams, and her, her heart cry resonates. And saying it's all just white suburban women really devaluates the
No.
experience that millions of people have with her music.
Right, and it's not even just women,
Yeah.
really.
It's
I mean,
everyone. Yeah.
right. Her music has started resonating even more so with the queer community,
Yeah.
especially over the last few years, and then especially in the last year since she sort of entered the football verse. You have a lot more of these, I believe, long closeted straight male Swifties that are coming out of the woodwork and being
You
like,
can't
"I've always
move off
liked
to her
Taylor."
beats. Yeah, she's got
You
some
can't deny
bangers.
it.
Yeah, sorry. You can hate on her all you want, but you're going to be bopping that foot. My
Yeah,
husband, and now he's got a playlist, which is our playlist called King and Queen, because he's obsessed with
love
Elvis.
it.
The way I love Taylor, he
Oh,
loves Elvis. So he has the King and Queen, and for Taylor and
love that.
Elvis. And
That
he's
sounds
crazy.
awesome.
I hear him shouting "woulda, coulda, shoulda" in the shower. He'll run to
It's a
Out of the
bop,
Woods.
man.
Dude,
Love that.
say what you will.
Love that. So, you grew up in a really alternative environment. You ran away as a teenager, and so what was that sort of like? What was your transition into the quote unquote real world like for you, and where did you go after you escaped the cult?
It was really difficult. I first went to England, where it was quite difficult to live, and it was actually quite a dark time for me. But I got to be there, and Taylor, in the time that I was in England, Taylor was still at home going to school, being a little pretty girl with her curly hair. But when I got to Georgia was when I first heard her music. I would say Georgia was an extremely dark time for me in my life because I was realizing that a lot of the things I had been taught and even a lot of the way I acted, here I was an American and people were asking me constantly where I was from. I had an accent when I talked, I was from nowhere. I had no identification for myself. But one thing is that, yeah, when the Fearless album came out, I felt like not only did that album just really, really sit with me for so long and just really heal me in a lot of ways. I just think she healed me so much, but I had something to talk about with people in the world. And I had
Mm,
actually started finding connections with people where I wasn't able to really connect with them before because people would tell me about their past and I would look at them like, cool. I don't know how to talk to you, right? Like Phoebe, I'm sorry, I don't know how to talk to you right now.
right. It
Like I
gave you a
just,
common cultural ground to be able to build
a
on with
strong
people.
one, a beautiful one
Yes.
of amazing people who didn't care if I was foreign. They didn't care where I was from. They didn't care if I had been chewed up
Hmm.
and spit out by the world. Like to them, I was still an innocent too. And to them, we were all discovering her. And it really, I think like without her, I honestly, a lot of people I grew up with because of how horrible it was. Most of my friends have unalived themselves out of my class of 40, there are, I don't even want to say the number of what is remaining, but it is sad. And I think that I'm a Scorpio, I'm an author, I am imaginative times 1 million, I am drama central. I could have easily been a casualty of that cult's war. Like, I would have gone down that road, I think, in so many different times in my life if I hadn't have had her. She was really a lifeline to me in a lot of different ways, strange ways too, where I never even saw it coming, like finding a common ground, or even like talking about something that we heard in the song, and being able to talk with someone and talk through our darkness by using her song as a catalyst, as opposed to having to talk about maybe things I wasn't ready to talk about yet. You know what I
Right.
mean? She was also a little bit of a shield for me too, which I love her.
Right. Because then it helped you find ways to talk about your feelings and express what you were going through in a way that your family and your upbringing had never given you the words for. But at
Oh,
the same
never.
time, also, if anybody ever came too close into the conversation, it gave you a way to, okay, well, let's talk about how this is about Taylor now.
That's right. It was, or
Exactly.
even
That's
like if
wonderful.
you're crying to red and I'm crying to red, we don't even have to talk about why we're crying to red. We just
You
know
just
that we
understand.
just get it. Like, who cares
Yes.
what broke you, but that's healing you. And she's a
Mm.
goddess because her pain can heal so many people. And that's real magic. There's a whole quest in the earth right now to let's find magic. Let's find aliens. Taylor has so much magic every time. Like she
She
says in her
does.
thing, no one writes a bad man like me. And the truth of it is there's so much honesty that comes out in that. And in her pain, so many people find healing, real healing too. Like, God,
Yeah.
there's one other person in the room who's also a crumpled piece of paper on the ground. Like, there's others too that are there,
Mhm.
letters addressed to the fire, like just lines that are so real and so deep
Mhm.
that I could cry talking about her. I love her so much. Clearly, I have a problem.
Well, then we both do because we're here right now.
Lyrical worship. But I'm a lover of Austen and Charlotte Bronte, and
Mhm.
I've got Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights and Emily Bronte, and I mean, I'm a lover of the
Mhm.
classics, and it's really in the writing too that I think has stitched so many different lives together. Like when Red came out.
Mhm.
Oh, I skipped over 1989. When 1980,
That's okay.
I didn't mean to. I meant to say when Taylor and her album. When 1989 came out, some of the songs on there were really about making it. Were really about it kind of doesn't
Mhm.
matter if your bank account is full or if it's empty. It doesn't matter if your heart is shattered or if it's not. We're here. We're going to try. We're going to do our best, like that
Yeah.
album. And it really came for me at a time in my life too, where I was needing to do that. And I think her music has this way. I know it's not only in my life. I want to feel like I'm special and it's only me, but clearly it happens to millions of people. But it's like,
Yeah.
in that moment, she's singing exactly what you needed in that moment. Somehow, what she was going through during COVID just healed. It was exactly what so many people needed.
Right.
I've been Taylor's fan since the second she made a song. I have loved her since all her stages. But during COVID with Folklore and Evermore, I have never seen such a rush of people coming over to her fandom.
Oh, yeah.
It was just like there was some kind of voodoo in the music, like narcotics
Tay
were
voodoo's in the air.
Alte voodoo just all over that album. And it just, what I felt, what so many of us had been feeling for so many years, with that healing just kind of seeped into the fabric of our universe and
Mhm.
just went around the world and healed millions of people. And
Mhm.
everyone's like, oh, her fame shot to this and her fame shot to that because of her magic, because of who she is and how she can get into your heart and your soul and sing for what you need in that moment. When the Red
Yeah.
album came out, I was totally breaking up with the love of my life. And I just felt like this is it. Like fuck it if I can't have him. Like, I was
Yeah.
so down bad. And it was, you know, 15 years, 16 years of struggling and clawing and trying so hard. And I finally gotten everything I wanted, and it just shattered like into 1,000
Mhm.
pieces. And loving him was Red. And
Yeah.
sometimes, I almost call you sometimes, in the darkest moments, I thought about calling you, dude. I almost did. The
Mhm.
state of grace just, I just laid on the floor for like 2 months and listened to that song. I was on tour as well for my new novel at the time, and my heart was just in a jillion pieces, and I had to fake it till I made it. Lights, camera,
Yeah.
smile. And all I could just only, if I took her out of my ear, the world would explode.
Right.
I just had to have it back in my ear. That Red album played in my ear until we got back together. And
Yeah.
I sent him the Red song, actually. I sent him the Red song, and I Almost Do. And he wrote, like, I think she brought us back together. Honestly, I do.
Yeah.
I think she helped us because he listened to that song and he was like, whoa, that was really beautiful, you know. And
Yeah.
she was able to say what I couldn't even say to him.
Right. That's one of the most incredible things about what Taylor does, is just put words to those unfathomable feelings and stuff.
And I'm an author. I've got words for everything. I was
Exactly.
But sometimes, you know, you can't see the forest for the trees when you're in so much pain, and Taylor somehow can. She,
Right.
even in her darkest moments, I appreciate that so much about her. In all her moments, there's always daylight. Like, I want to be defined by the things that I love. In the end, she's always got that quest for what she loves and keep what's beautiful. And I think that's also really saved me over the years too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's backtrack a little bit in your timeline. We talked about the Grammys in 15 and how that really impacted you. And so after the Fearless era, after that, once you started to sort of find your place in the world, what was it like moving into to Speak Now era and sort of exploring love in the mainstream world for the first time and trying to learn to understand that after your upbringing?
Yeah, it was. Speak Now has a lot of powerful songs too. Speak Now is also a slow burn album. Like, a song you think you might not love so much on that album becomes your favorite song.
Like
But Speak
years
Now
down the
is just
line.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was really learning to, like, when you go through horrible things, I think all women who have been abused, any form of abuse, whether it's, you know, verbal and mental abuse in a marriage, or physical abuse in a relationship, or, you know, parental or whatever kind of horrible abuse that you go through, I think that a lot of women, they internalize, they take it inside of themselves more than anything like that, and they feel a lot of guilt. Like, it must be my fault I'm being abused, it must be my fault I was being hurt. It's the whole theology behind how short was her skirt. And I think Speak Now help it. There's a lot on there that helps you let go of guilt. I think I was starting to forgive maybe my parents, maybe kind of try to forgive in that album of like what had happened, and just kind of step away from it and see what there was for me in the world. I just listened to Speak Now. I was working really hard at the time that album came out. I was in college and I was working 3 jobs, and I just remember constantly being on the go. But I do think that album had a lot. Oh yeah. And then there was something with the song Haunted. Like I said, a lot of people that I was close to in my life took their own lives because of just not being able to, I think, properly assimilate to society. It's hard to even relate how we grew up to anything, maybe the Amish, except, you know, at least I think the parents, like, the Amish don't live in like massive communes. So kind of Amish, but in a commune, you know, where your parents are not really there and you're kind of just growing up really in a very scary environment, I would say. And when you when you come out into the world, having all that ripped away and basically learning everything that you knew was a lie, I think is really hard for a lot of people. And a lot of people didn't make it through that kind of what I call the brain flip or the mental flip. And I lost someone really close to me during that time. I'd also lost my brother in Africa at the time as well. So there was a lot on Speak Now. Haunted, oh my God. And then, of course, Innocent. That song just, you feel dirty, you feel guilty when someone hurts you, you feel filthy.
Right.
And she's right. And you feel like they put out your light, and she's saying, you know, hold on, because your light is still bright to me. Like,
Right.
who you are, it's not where you've been. Like, you're still an innocent. And I always felt like that. Like, who I am is not where I've been. Like, that was not me. I was born there. I didn't join that. I would never have been a part of something like that. Who I am is but where I've been made me. And Taylor was saying, yeah, look, we all go through this horrible stuff, but you're still an innocent. Like, your light is still bright to me. I don't know where I would be without hearing those kind of lyrics and those songs. I don't know if I'd still be in this mortal coil. I would have shuffled off.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't think I could have made it really without her, truthfully,
Right. And
without
that
hearing
song
a
in
song like that.
and that song in particular, Innocent, is one of the most interesting ones of hers to me, just in the way that it's evolved culturally, because originally she wrote that song as her way of giving forgiveness to
Yeah.
someone who had hurt her.
Yeah.
But when she re recorded that song for Speak Now Taylor's version, I heard something completely different. Like, and when I listen to the two versions now, I hear different messages, because when I hear the original one, I hear how she is talking to someone else. But when I hear the Taylor's version, I hear her forgiving her younger self.
Yeah, me too. And
And
I heard it
I
both ways too.
exactly. And Speak Now didn't land for me when I was younger.
Really?
I wasn't as interested in it, but when Taylor's version came out and I heard that song Innocent as an adult in her adult voice with that new connotation to it, it just broke me down to, this is what I needed to hear. And it's just incredible how her music evolves over time and continues to bring up new messages for
Yeah,
us.
it's really powerful. It's also as her fan base grows up and evolves with her. Yeah, I remember the second I heard that song, I had to pull over on the road. I was driving to an interview at the Times, and I was just feeling like, everyone in the world had their shit together by the time they were my age. And I'm smart as a whip. I have an IQ off the charts. My SAT scores were huge. I ran in, I got my degrees. I did what I could. We had no discernible schooling of any type in the cult either. We did these weird Christian workbooks and stuff.
Good for you, girl.
Oh, thank you. Well, I had a good brain, and I could, one of my biggest contraband in the cult was I would steal books and hide them under my bed and read and teach myself words. And, I know all the big words except also ran and Taylor.
That was the only word on Tortured Poets I didn't know either. I was like, of all of these, you're going to trick me with a 4-letter word with a hyphen.
And a sports word too. Like,
right.
Okay. Way to get me after 17 years with also ran.
Right.
Like that dictionary where you have to make up what the definition was. Oh my God. I remember being in my car and just feeling like it doesn't matter what I do. I have this past looming behind me. It's made me, I don't have what everybody has. I got my social security number when I was 17 years old. Like, I didn't have anything. And I was driving to the interview just thinking, this is a bus. Like, there's no way I'm going to get this. And then I just heard that $1 million voice coming down the phone, $1 jillion at this point. But I just heard her singing those words and I had to pull over the car. I was crying so hard. Like, my whole soul was shaking. My body was coughing, and it felt like she was in my car telling me that. And I was thinking, yes, I know I like to follow the gossip, even though I don't really like to talk about it, but I knew that it was for someone, and I knew kind of the gossip that was going around that song, but I felt like it was for me. I felt like there was no one in the world that needed to hear that the way I did. I felt like I was seconds from just driving off the 101. And then I heard her singing that, and I went in and I got the job, and I kept that music in my ear, and I kept listening to that, and I kept hearing it, and I did not take my life, and I did not fail. I held on to that stuff. Well, guess what? Taylor says who you are is not where you've been. So I'm going to believe that with 1,000% of my soul. And Taylor told me that who you are is not where you've been. And I've just carried that line with me until I faked it till I made it, until that was true, until who I am was not where I've been. And I could take the good from that. And believe it or not, I can actually say at this age of my life, I'm grateful for what happened. And she would say that sometimes in her life. I look back now. That Manuscript song, same experience, by the way. Pulled over to the side of the road with the manuscript and bawled my eyes out as well.
Oh,
because now and then I do read the manuscript. Now and then I do think of it, and sometimes it does appear in my dreams. I have very lucid dreams. But the story isn't mine anymore. The story is the development of my character. It's the storyboard to the character that I am in and the avatar I am playing. So
love that.
I hear her, like, I get it. Like, I feel you,
That's
dog.
amazing.
And even if it's not what she meant in that moment or whatever, that's what I think is so magical about her music, is its translation, its ability to like what you were saying, you know.
Yeah, that sounds like it was really impactful for you. And so at that point in your life, you finished college, you're entering into your boss girl era, you got the job, and then after that you started your career as an author, right? And where did that take you?
No, not yet, actually. I was working in media.
Okay.
I was doing articles and freelance reporting. I was also still traveling. I worked with the Red Cross. I went back to Africa. I worked with Doctors Without Borders. I traveled everywhere. I went everywhere. So I was doing all that when I hadn't started being an author yet. I was writing a novel though this whole time, but like a joke. I was writing it like a joke. Like one day, I'll die. Someone will find this. Like, I wasn't trying to do it as a career. I was actually, I wanted to be a news reporter, like an anchor. I was going to try and do that. But I went to Africa and I worked with the child soldiers for a long time. And I actually had an operation in an army tent in Africa and nearly died. And a lot of my life really shifted around there. I think Speak Now just kept me through that time, because that was a really rough time in my life. I don't know what I'm allowed to talk about on this podcast, but that was a rough time in my life.
You can talk about whatever you want.
Oh, I mean, I just was using a lot of drugs as a way to escape, and I was partying a lot. But I definitely could only eat kids' cereal and sleep if it was in my mother's bed. Like, I could only sleep if it was with Taylor playing beside me. Still to this day, actually, I can only really go to sleep if Taylor's playing. I have to say that started, though, in that time in Africa, which was a very difficult time for me. And I was also surrounded with a lot of horror. And I think her music was like the only light in my darkness. I was working with the child soldiers out there and with some different orphanages. And I was actually there during the Ivory Coast, the Côte d'Ivoire War. And so there was just a lot of death and mayhem around me. And there wasn't much any of us could do to help. And I felt like that, like I was saying with Haunted and with Innocent, that really could have been a time in my life where I just thought, okay, this is just too horrible. But and I lost someone at that time too. But Speak Now was just, and then Taylor, it was 2 years, right? That between Speak Now and Red?
That's correct.
It was 2 years, yeah. So I moved back to the States. I moved to California. I had actually started working with Blizzard and a couple different other production companies, and I was starting to do film and TV writing. And I had put out my first comic series, which was a Greek mythology series, which I had done with 4 amazing artists, incredible artists. We had all put this book out. And I met the man I love forever, my lover, at Long Beach Comic Con. I ran right into him. A friend of mine told me to go find him. And we had a very tempestuous first year. We didn't really date for the first year at all. We just traveled together. And I will say that I was also in those 2 years, it was Speak Now and Rihanna were very intertwined. I was really in my Rihanna, I always say wrong. I was really in my Rihanna era at that time too. And it was a lot of partying. We were making a lot of money. We were traveling all over America. We were partying. I wouldn't say that in those 2 years, like, I still always listened to her when I fell asleep. But, I did go to a Speak Now concert. So that was amazing.
Did you go in the U.S.?
Yeah, I went in the U.S.
Yeah.
And then because my lover was who he was, it was a real, I can fix him. No, really, I can't. And then a real, whoa, maybe I can't. He's a very big, wonderful artist celebrity in his own right. He's an incredible artist and been very popular traveling around. He's been on tour for 16 years, basically alone in hotel rooms. It's a whole party lifestyle that I got involved in for a while there. And it's not sustainable when you're in love with someone because of jealousy and pain and your finger on my hairpin trigger. And so I left him, which was 100% the hardest thing I've ever done. ever. It feels fighting with a true love really is boxing with no gloves. It was brutal. And I moved in, and literally the weekend that I broke up with him, the weekend I signed my lease, I was in
Mm-hmm.
my leasing office and I was bawling my eyes out. And my sister's like, Taylor dropped Red. And I listened to it. Yeah, that I think that Red was the album. That's what I was going to say with being in my Rihanna era. Rihanna, and in this moment, I really love her as well. They were really they were in my life a lot right before
Mm-hmm.
Red came out. I was listening to them a lot. I was still falling to sleep to Speak Now and
Mm-hmm.
to Fearless, but they were in my life a lot. And then after the Red album, I will honestly say that all other artists took a third backseat to Taylor. That was it for me. With that album,
Yeah.
she pretty much became my primary source of music. Every
Yeah.
single song on that album, I can't even hardly describe the experience that that album was. It was me, a bottle of Chardonnay, and that album for 3 months on the
Right.
ground, trying to think, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I cannot
Right.
go through one more earthquake. Who can mentally deal with this? And then I thought, oh, here's someone else with a million earthquakes. Here's someone else who
Right.
can't. I don't know. Like, I felt her in that album, and that was it for me. I became a Swiftie after that. I went from
And
it really, that album really did something to me, and I maintain that it's why we got back together, was from that album
yeah.
too. I think she helped me keep him.
Right. And for you, that was also another one of those moments where I would think it felt like she was sort of inside your life writing things, right? Maybe especially with the song
I know.
Trouble,
I like to
because you
think she.
mentioned a little bit that you and your lover went through a little bit of a media storm
Yeah.
as a part of your falling apart. And so how did seeing Taylor write about her very high profile relationship help you relate to what was going on with you and your partner?
Actually, it's another way that Taylor always saves me. Is like the negative things they say about her in the media.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the rumors are terrible, but honey, most of them are true. I love her so much. I love the way she acts. I love her take on it. I love her. And it's not only that. I also, like Taylor says, when you go into art or when you create something, it's because you want to be loved. You want people to love you. You want people to think you're amazing. You want people to stand up and clap for you. I never
Right.
wanted you to hate me. Negative reviews at that time, reading her negative reviews, reading what people say about her has always given me so much strength. Her negative reviews have given me more strength than her positive reviews. Because if they can say that about her love life, about here's this 115-pound, 5'11" girl that they're saying is pregnant. Dude, she looks so skinny. You'd be lucky. Shut up. Like, God would fall from the sky if you looked like that. And they're saying she's
Mm-hmm.
pregnant. Like, the crap, the
Insane.
jackals raised their hackles. You couldn't conceive it. If that's what's coming from in her camp, the tiny little bit that I was getting that was just breaking my soul apart, where someone calls my writing a polished turd, or my book a polished turd, where I have 5 of the best artists in the industry working on it. It's just like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's like the New York Times saying Taylor needs an editor. It's like, this article needed an editor. Like, shut up, dude. If they can say that about her, then it has taken so much of the sting out of it for me. If she can do it, I can do it if she can do it on that grand, insane, impossible scale, I can do it on my smaller, much smaller scale. If her heart can stay strong, mine certainly can. And her thickening skin and my thickening skin have thickened together. I have thickened
Mm-hmm.
with her. She has gotten thicker skin over the years too. She's hardened. She
Right.
says, what if it becomes who you are? That's always the fear, that you'll be too hard. But
Mm-hmm.
I would say that, she really helped me for sure during that album as well. Really hearing what she has to say and really thinking like, tonight, who cares? I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22. Like, let them say what they want. Who the fuck is Taylor Swift?
Mm-hmm.
Let them fucking shout it from the rooftops. Let them say what they want. What does it matter? We're going to keep making our art. We're going to keep dancing. Like, they can't knock us
Mm-hmm.
off our feet because we're dancing. And it was a good Taylor lesson for me. It was a real lesson learned to not take things so personally and to be able to be like,
Absolutely.
well, that's what they're saying, but this is what I'm living. Kind of like what Joe Alwyn just said, actually, which I thought was very powerful.
Yeah, I actually thought that his comments that he released this week were very respectful, very
Yeah.
insightful. I think
He's like,
I
we were
read
in
the
love.
article and I was like, this sounds like a quote we would get from Taylor.
I mean, he
It was
says
like
we were in love and committed, and there is what it was, and there's what it becomes, what the media makes it,
right, and that's a hard thing to navigate with or without the media.
yeah.
I think a lot of people are upset that he's waited so long to make that statement. I think that's what people are upset with him about. But overall, I think the statement itself was
Not me. I don't think,
great.
she had another relationship in that time too. We don't know what
Yeah,
his pain was. They broke up, and
exactly.
breakups are breakups. Like, it
Hmm.
was clearly a loving, committed. It wasn't
Absolutely.
it was
Yeah.
okay, this is not going well for each other's sanity. We're going to have to, and it
Hmm.
must be, can you imagine trying to date Taylor Swift? I mean, give me a fucking break. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's like trying to date Aphrodite. Like,
Yeah.
it must be so infuriating for her. She can't even step out of her house with a friend to have a cup of coffee, and all of a sudden they're having a baby. And it's just like, whoa,
Yeah.
like, what if I never even banged that guy? What if we never slept together? And now all of a sudden
Yeah.
I almost married him. It's like, no, I didn't. Also, when
Right.
she says, people speculating things about her and all of that too, the speculation about it all, there's a huge rumor going around about me in my industry right now, which is just
Yeah.
crazy speculation. I know. I travel with my best friend and my husband.
Hmm.
My best friend, by the
Hmm.
way, who has been married for 26 years
Hmm.
and has 3 children and is very, very straight. Not, I'm
Hmm.
sure she's thought about it and all of that, like any girl does.
Hmm.
I maintain that all women think about it, but
Hmm.
that's my take on it. But yeah,
Right. But
everybody's like,
people are going to say what they're going to say, right? I
yeah,
mean, people say that sometimes about Taylor, Ryan, and Blake.
that's right. Someone asked us if we're in a throuple, and she's like, "Oh, everyone talks about it." I want to put up a post being like, "Despite my years of asking, Dawn is still denying me. She remains committed to her 26-year marriage. Please stop bringing up this rumor, as it's a point of pain for me." That's what I want to say.
So sore that this rumor will never become truth. So please stop bringing it up.
I swear, that's going to be my post. Like, this is despite my
So troll the
years
whole
of begging. We've known each other since we were children. Also, her husband grew up in the cult with me, and we were actually babies. We were babies in the same hospital. Her husband and I have known each other since infancy. So, LOL to what people say is all I'm saying. Like, it just
Oh
LOL.
yeah.
And we never really know. That's why I try to be so respectful, unless it comes out of Taylor's mouth, Tree's mouth, even her men's mouths. I don't care about them. Look at that crap Maddie
Right.
Healy
If
just,
it's not from Tree,
yeah,
Taylor, or Taylor
yeah,
Nation, or
then,
Andrea Swift,
yeah, then I don't want to hear
it
it.
doesn't matter.
Then I don't
Yeah.
care what you're saying, stupid New York Times.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Who are they hiring
Absolutely.
over there? That place.
Right. And then, so really on Red, Taylor deals with heartbreak. She deals with being in the public eye a lot. And she starts to, like we talked about, starts to stand up to the media a little bit and say, you know what, you guys can say what you want to say, and I'm still going to love myself for that. And then, of course, going into her 1989 era, I feel like is when she really starts being like, I'm going to be me.
Oh my God. Yeah. 1989 was also really about putting aside the things that hurt you and making
Hmm.
something of yourself and finding your dreams and really realizing. I think in 1989, Taylor started to find a sense of self outside of
Hmm.
the sense she had been told that was supposed to be
Hmm.
her sense of self. The media really put her up as someone maybe she wasn't in her heart.
Hmm.
I'm sure she's the sweetest, kindest, most beautiful girl in the whole dang world. But she's probably a little raw and a little edgy. You've got edge she never did. She put that in there.
Hmm.
Taylor's edgy. They just didn't want her to be. That's my opinion.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I agree.
But I felt like that a lot in my life too. I was
Hmm.
edgy. I wasn't allowed to be who I was. I was told who I was supposed to be. I was also, I did a lot of filming acting as a child, and that also really puts you in a box as well. And I think 1989 was Taylor breaking that box, and I really heard that whole album all throughout it.
Yeah.
Wonderland, it was just a chilling for me.
Yeah.
Love.
Well, and when we talked before, you've talked a little bit about how both Red and 1989 have a lot of songs for you that sort of tell the story of the man who would become the love of your life, but you guys had a pretty rough road to get there. So can
We
you give
did.
us a little more detail on how you met him and how you fell apart and fell back together? And
That's
a
when
lot of that
Eric
also
started
started.
becoming a real Swiftie, was 1989. Like Red
No.
hooked him in, and then 1989 reeled him. Also, Are We Out of the Woods was such a powerful song to me, because when we first got back together, I thought, oh my God, are we out of the woods? Like, you know, well, it was 2 years later, but it was 2 years of some battle. So I thought, you know, when that song came out, it was right at that time too. I was really feeling like, oh my God, do I actually have something here? Is this going to stick? Is this real? That's when he really got into that song too.
So at like when 1989 came out is when you and Eric started to sort of find each other again and build a good foundation this time.
Yeah. I mean, we were still pretty wild. There was a party foundation. We were still quite young and stuff, but yeah, I think 1989 was kind of a wild album. I loved it so much, but there was like, yeah, I think it's a sex album. And now that she put out Slut, it's such a sex album. Like, give me a break.
yeah.
Those cut songs were what made, like, that album was like, she was finding herself in so many ways. Like her voice with the media, her voice with her, and even as a woman, and you can hear it in that album, the whole tone of her naughtiness changes. And especially now that we have, you know, I Can See You. Like, wait, that's 19.
That was Speak Now.
Oh, that was Speak Now. Okay, no, wait, what did I just say? Not I Can, Slut. And,
Slut, yes.
And the other one, Blue Dress on a Boat, Your New Girl is alone.
Is It Over Now?
Is it over now? That's what I was trying to say. Not I Can See You. Is it over now? Is it over now? There was just, she got more naughty in that album. She started to be, I'm always telling my husband, I'm like, Taylor is naughty. She's naughty. And he's like, no, she's not. She's a good girl. I'm like, no, she's not. But now after, you know, all the dancing and the concerts, I've convinced him. He's like, yeah, there's a little naughty in there. Like that.
A little bit. Just a little. I mean, Guilty as Sin, that girl ain't trying to hide it anymore.
No, that was gorgeous. That is, oh my God, that song. I think, yeah, in 1989, she really decided to own it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, a lot of the songs on 1989,
I cut my
hair. A lot of the songs, I actually cut my hair up.
I saw 1989 three times plus the iHeart, so 4 times.
Oh, lucky. So lucky.
If I wasn't on my tour or at my show, I was trying to be at hers.
That's awesome.
It was good. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was really my party era too. And I think she was kind of in her party era too.
No? Oh yeah, she was on top of the world. Yeah. She was
in her party,
enjoying herself. And I actually all the time wonder where she might have gone from there if
I know, me too.
The Kanye incident did not happen.
Well, like a lot of led her. Yeah, you first.
That led her down the path to reputation. You know, there's a lot of speculation that there's a sort of a whole secret album out there that she sort of had before everything went wrong. Yeah, the Karma album.
There is a secret album out there for sure. It's on our Rosetta Stone, our Swiftian stone.
Right? We all know. We're like, is it going to come out at the end of the Eras tour, or are you going to make us wait till you die?
I don't know. That might be the Lost album. That might be the Trump novel. Also, like, during 1989, there was a very, I don't know what the word was with her. There was just something in her eyes in 1989. I think she really realized what it was going to take to make it, and then realized, I'm going to do it. I got to a certain point in my career where I realized what it was going to take to get all the way to where I want to go. I like to be New York bestseller, and I'm pretty sure this book is going to do it. But once I
Mm-hmm.
understood what it was going to take, all the hate, all the more love your book gets, the more sales, the more hate, the more people are going to mock it.
Exactly.
You know, there's always going to be it. And you think, do I want that? Do I want that pain? Do I want that stress in my life? Is it worth
Mm-hmm.
my dream? Or do I need a new dream? Do I
Mm-hmm.
want that pain for that dream? And I think she had those thoughts in 1989 era where she was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I know the pain. I've been going through it for a few years now. Is the dream still worth it to me? And I hear in that album her deciding, yes, it is. It's still worth it. I still love like my people, my fans. I think it was us and our love for her that
Mm-hmm.
was her tipping point. I think more than all the men Taylor's ever been in love with, I think we are her first and true love, and
I agree.
probably will always be. And I think she picks us every time. If like
Mm-hmm.
there's a choice between a man or us, maybe it won't last forever. She might pick
Right.
the man and whatever life she wants. And I'm so happy if she does that. You know,
But I do think that recent events have shown
she
that
picks us.
at least in this past phase of her life, she chose us.
Yeah, she chose us in the Reputation too, and I hear her
Mm-hmm.
choosing us through Speak Now, through 1989, because she knows that they're coming for her. She knows that
Right.
they're whispering about her, and the rumors are terrible, and honey, most of them are true, and she gets it, and she's still
Right.
picking us. Beautiful. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
1989
Yeah.
was Taylor saying, "I love you guys too," and I
I
think that was
think,
powerful.
yeah, I agree. And I also think it's really fascinating that you brought up how 1989 really shows the phase in her life when she had sort of come to terms with the duality of her fame and accepted it and was like, I am ready to go to battle for this.
That's a powerful
And then,
statement, the duality of her fame. That's really a good thing.
and I mean, because that's the
You're right.
truth. Like you said, the more love you get, the more hate you get. And fame is a very dual thing. Fame always comes with infamy.
Beauty is a beast
And
that roars.
she thought that she had come to a place where she was prepared for that, that she could
Yeah.
handle that. And then she got blindsided by what probably was her worst nightmare, which was us, the people she does everything for, turning against her. I think of everything that she had
You
built
mean
up in
during
her head during
Reputation?
1989. Yeah, going into Reputation, everything she'd built up in her head during 1989 of, oh, I can combat the haters because I'll always have the Swifties. I think she really was blindsided and ended up doing a little bit of backtracking during Reputation. She lost a little bit of that confidence she gained during 1989 because she was shocked to find out that maybe the people that loved her weren't as infallible as she had hoped. Which is a
Not
huge
the real
disappointment.
one.
I personally stood by her side the whole time. I was so disappointed in all of the fair weather Swifties.
Yeah, that because
Um,
you can't call yourself a real Swiftie and have any conceptualization of what happened in that situation. Like we've known Taylor from her MySpace page. We know how she sounds and talks. We also know she's
mhm.
not a liar. It was clearly more to the story. It was clearly, and you can't know the players. Like if people were against her, it's because they wanted to be, because they wanted to
Mhm.
hate. They wanted something to hate on. And the media just immediately painted her like a demon. And
Exactly.
that's just what they do. Like it can turn on you so fast. And yeah,
Mhm.
maybe some of her fans turned on her and that was just awful, but I don't think those people mattered in the first place. Like I don't think
Yeah.
they were real fans in the first place. I never once thought she told a lie. I never once
Right.
imagined that the entire phone call itself, regardless of where she spliced it, was a
Mhm.
sexually abusive phone call. You could bring that phone call to
Mhm.
a court of law and file for sexual abuse. Just saying the words he said, me and Taylor might still fuck, just even before the video, before anything.
Right.
He
Well,
sexually
because if you
abused her on that phone call, which immediately put him in the wrong in my head. I never once thought, you don't put a girl in that situation. She's always going to react in fear. I've been in that
right.
situation with men multiple times where they've lorded their
Mhm.
experience, their your respect for them, where they've lorded it over you. And that's what Kanye did to her. He manipulated her emotions and he used fear to get an agreement out of her. It was very dangerous and extremely toxic what he did to her. So whatever she did after that was under duress. And any good therapist will tell you what's done under duress is not done with, whatever she responded to, even when she's like, yeah, I guess that's okay. That's duress. You can hear her voice. She's like so kind of tongue in cheek. Like you can almost hear it screeching. She's so afraid in that.
She sounds so uncomfortable on that call.
So uncomfortable. So
it's true. And like you said, if you think about it as take it out of this celebrity context.
Yeah. Put it
Taylor and Kanye are coworkers.
Yeah.
If we put this in any other environment, they are essentially coworkers. They are professional peers. And if you were in a corporate office, that would have been sexual harassment.
Can I please tell everyone in the office that we might still fuck?
What?
What? And then send out an office memo where you've made my naked body out of a wax figure and send it out to everyone in the office with you laying beside me. Like just put it down to that tiny little sphere. That guy would be fired and sued. Like it would be grounds for an emotional abuse lawsuit.
Absolutely.
Everyone just glossed over that. Everyone's just like, Taylor lied. Shut your stupid mouths. Everybody completely glossed over the horrendous sexual abuse she wasn't even that old. Like he's much older than her as well. It was like really creepy. It was like if the boss of the company did that.
Right. She was still in her mid-20s and he was nearly 40 at the time. Yeah.
Weird. The whole phone call was weird. Who would call a young girl and ask her that? Like, gross. What a gross.
Yeah, that's crazy.
What a gross move. And then the fact that, of course, Kim went on his side and Kim is seen taking photos of naked Taylor. Like Taylor can bury whatever hatchet she wants, but that was, in my opinion, unforgivable because I've grown up in. That's unforgivable.
As a woman, she should have known better.
Oh my God. As a woman at her age, it's hard to make it to that age without experiencing at least some form of abuse from men.
Especially not in the modeling industry. I'm sure Kim has been through that.
To feel it. But she wasn't. She was there laughing and taking photos. And that must have it breaks my heart. I cried so hard for Taylor. When that came out, it was just freaking heartbreaking. The whole thing was so heartbreaking. In fact,
absolutely.
I do think that Taylor got so hurt to the point where we almost lost her. Like, I really think she's like, no one physically saw me for a year, and it takes you a year. And then there's other stuff there too. There's like that kind of, you feel gross. Like you need to take a shower there. And then there's like guilt and like, now you're wary, like she says, wary of phone calls, wary of, you're scared.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
And a lot of that, it came through so poignantly on Reputation. And when Reputation came out, we really heard a side of her that we'd never heard before. For me, at least, like I felt like Taylor didn't really grow up until Reputation. Then when I heard Reputation, I was like, okay, she's a full woman now. She's got the rage. She's ready to stand up for herself. She, has had this trauma and these experiences that make her a more well-rounded person. Where were you in your life when Reputation came out, and what sort of impact did seeing that darker side of Taylor have for you?
Well, I was still going through weird press at the time. I was on tour myself. A bunch of my books had just come out. I never got to see the Reputation tour it's the saddest story of my life, but all the dates, it was always weekends, and I was booked I did like 30 shows or something insane right around the tour time. So I missed Reputation, but also like, I love Reputation so much, but it wasn't for me. No, I can't say that. Reputation is incredible, and I loved every second of it. But I felt so much pain and so much angst and so much hurt. And I was so disillusioned with Swifties myself. I think I felt very angry at them. And there was so many emotions for me, seeing everybody lose their mind over Reputation, who had all just been calling her bad names. Like, I was so privately raging out, like yelling to the mirror, because there was no one else for me to yell to. And I just was always wondering if she was looking out into the crowd. Maybe that's why I subconsciously didn't go. Was she wondering which one of us hated her and then loved her again? Was she wondering who said what and who was there in her room? Maybe that's why I didn't go to any of those tours. I wanted to be like, please don't ever think it was me. Like, and maybe that's ego swinging. I don't know. But I just felt like those tours must have been hard for her to look out into that crowd of screaming people and think, which one of you called me a liar? That must be hard. Yeah. Reputation was incredible, though. Really amazing time. I loved everything about that album. I was super happy for her that she was falling in love. I think I was more lost in the love story of that album. I think it's her only album that really is a true love story. There's a lot in there. I think Lover, we're already starting to see some fights. Lover is very much a love story. But with Reputation, it's just good. Also, it really helped me. I was really getting a lot of negative reviews. People were saying that my work was over sexualized. I write Greek mythology, and Greek mythology, I'm sorry, I didn't grow up in America. Boobs are not the devil to me. Like, in Europe, they're normal. It's normal to see nude art. In fact, clothed goddesses are not the norm. So, I do have nudity in my art, and I'm very proud of it. Most European artists do have nudity in their art, and it's to respect the female form. And I think I was getting a lot of heat at that time. I ended up on a blog called like Moms Against Comics or something. I don't know what it was, but they hate me. I'm Jezebel. They hate me. They said the worst things about my book and stuff. And it was hard for me. The reviews were such that, they ended up on Goodreads. And it was difficult for me too. I did have a lot of fans come to my defense, but I did also have other people try and, I think it's just for fun. They take the other side just to debate it or whatever. I don't know. But it was hurtful for me. And I was going through my own crap at the time and trying to decide if it was even worth it for me to be an author, because I hate negative reviews. I just hate the hate,
Fair enough. Yeah.
But
I'm the same way. I love positive comments, but I hate the negative comments. We actually had a troll come through and post nasty comments on every TikTok video for the podcast last week. All 100 of them that are posted. And it's just like, why?
Like, why?
What do you get out of it?
Yeah, and also it's like, what's so crazy about the human experience, I don't know what it is, but you can get 10,000 positive reviews and one negative review, and your whole world crumbles. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just grabbing some coffee really quick.
Yeah,
1 second.
Absolutely. Got to stay hydrated and
but it's the one negative review that knocks your socks off. So
yeah, for sure. And so during this time going into Reputation and stuff, you've been away from your family for quite some time. Did you still have any connections left to your family at this point in your life?
Oh, I stayed very connected with my brothers and sisters. We all left around the same time.
Okay.
My parents, it's been a slippery slope with them. I lost my father also right between 1989 and Reputation. I lost my dad. So it was also tough for me then. Right between 1989 and Reputation. That's right.
So then, we made it through the Reputation area. We made it through the dark ages. And then we come into the daylight with Lover. And finally, we're getting some positive colors. We're getting some positive vibes back from Taylor. What was the Lover era like for you?
It was amazing. My man proposed to me during the Lover era. It was beautiful, actually. The whole Lover song, and he did the whole thing for me. Even got me
What did he do?
He first asked my son's permission if he could marry me. And then he wrote this letter, and he got this rose dipped in gold that has Lover written on it. It was just all very beautiful. And then he proposed to me, and I said yes. But it was really hard because we were still, Eric and I are both artists, and we're very tempestuous people. We've been together
Hmm.
for 12 years now, so we're doing great. But he's a Virgo and I'm a Scorpio, and we butt heads, and we have had a rough road. It is hard to stay with someone, chemistry till it blows up is really what it was for us. It was chemistry till it blows up, till there's no us. It was, I look through the windows of this love, like there were so many fights happening with us during the lover era. And I knew I wanted to marry him, but I also knew, also, I saw Taylor changing things about herself. Like, it's all me, meet me in the afterglow. Like, these are my hairpin triggers. I saw her learning things about herself and adjusting so
Hmm.
that she could love Joe and she could be with him. And
Hmm.
I needed to do that in my own life as well. I needed to
Yeah,
adjust things. I feel like any good love affair, you do have to mold to each other a little bit. You have
hmm,
to, it's hard. It's hard to live with someone, and it's really hard to live with someone that you're deeply in love with, because they can hurt you so much easier. And
absolutely.
yeah, I learned a lot through Lover. Lover was just, and at that point with Lover, like also with Reputation, all of these, but there was no really any other music for me at the time with Lover.
Hmm.
And I have to say, I've had a lot of things in my life that I could hate. I've had a really tough life. If I was to write a book, or when I write my novel, it will be rated R. It was bad.
Hmm.
And I think that in Lover, what was very beautiful for me about that album, and what was just so incredible for me, was just the light in that album. There are so many things for me to hate, but I want to be defined by the things that I love, not the things that I hate. And I heard that in my soul, because growing up the way I did, I would be well within my right to throw a big fat hissy fit and hate all kinds of things. I would be well within my right to just
Hmm.
be like, oh, life threw me the worst. But I want to be defined by the things that I love. When one of them is her, Taylor, I love you. And I am defined by her. I am defined by her
Mm.
because she is the thing that I love. But there are a lot of things that I love, like, and I want those things to define me. I don't want my past to define me. I don't want my childhood to define me. I don't even want the horrible histories attached to my parents to define me. Like I said, with my
Yeah.
parents, it's a slippery slope. Don't believe everything you read in the media about the cult, but some of it is true. And, there's always sides to every story, but my parents did hurt a lot of people. And
Yeah.
it's hard to come to terms with that, of course. And I could hate so many things, but I
Yeah.
want to be defined by the things that I love. And another thing, I also think, not going to give Taylor all the credit, because boy, did I put in the work, but Lover really helped us stay together. And I think
Yeah.
it helped me find myself, find my love for him, and realize, okay, I love
Yeah.
him so much. I can let some of this stuff about myself go. Like, I can let some of these
Yeah.
fears go. And it's just another time she was there for me in my relationship, in a time when I really, really, really needed
Yeah.
her in that moment. And I was very afraid we weren't going to get anything after Reputation. I was afraid
Hmm. Oh, me
everybody,
too.
this is why we can't have nice things. Everybody just fucking ruined it for us. And so having Lover, and just, it was just so gorgeous. And I was so grateful that she was happy. I just remember feeling a lot of
Yeah.
gratefulness during the time of that album.
Right. Lover also, I feel like, is the first time, other than maybe the song Back to December, when we see Taylor start to take personal responsibility for downfalls in her relationships.
Yeah.
And also start to talk. It's the first time she really starts talking about mutual
Yeah.
responsibility. And
She taught me a lot
um,
about that.
yes, and that also was a super impactful album for me. At the same time, I had a very similar experience to you, where I was with a partner who I loved, but we were fighting a lot, and Lover just sort of like put a magnifying glass on all of those relationship issues. But she does such a good job in it of defining the struggles of an adult relationship. And I feel like in all her past albums, she sort of, all of her previous songs sort of have a, when it gets hard, kick them out
Yeah, that's right.
sort of a vibe. And
Well, that's
Lover
it.
is the first
The
time when
bolter.
she's like, yeah, yeah, exactly. She's the
Yeah.
bolter. And
She's,
Lover is the first time when she's like,
I'm going to
no,
stay.
I'm
I
going to
beg you on
stay
my
and
knees.
put in the work. Put
That's
in the
right.
work.
Yeah.
And
And that's what I decided during that time too.
yeah. And I think a lot of people had that feeling. And maybe for a lot of us that were a little bit younger than Taylor, helped us sort of mature and be prepared for those adult
Yeah.
relationships. And um, which is also sort of fascinating because then as she moves into folklore, which isn't even that much longer later, she um, starts to define the threshold between putting in the work and when is the work too much, in songs like Exile, and Tolerate It is on Evermore. But in those two eras, it's so in Lover we start to be like, okay, I need to put myself aside to put in the work. And then in Folklore and Evermore she starts to be like, okay, but where's the line?
Yeah. Where's
Where's how much of yourself do you put aside to put in the work? And obviously we were going into the pandemic during that time. That was a really transitory time for a lot of people. Where did that see you headed?
yeah, I moved during COVID out here to this big, beautiful house, which was lovely on the top of a mountain with snakes and wolves. But yeah, I think what you said, though, is really powerful about Folklore and Evermore. Taylor was finding a line. And I know she says she created characters, but, I'm an author and I'm an artist. You're in your work. So
Right.
regardless of if you spend all day creating characters, a little piece of you is in your work. And many authors, and let's say, okay, Taylor is a lyrical goddess and songstress divine, but she is at her core a true poet, like a real one, like where anything she would say, rhyme or no rhyme, it is a form of poetry. Just even in her, how she can express her thoughts is just so
Yes.
poetic, just Emily Dickinson on crack. And I just think that during that time, she was able to tell a lot of women. I can also say that my sister and I got a lot closer during the folklore era. She had just left her husband. Um, it was a whole thing that was happening with them. She moved to California. She got a house right beside me, and we've always been close, but folklore just knitted us together times 1,000. I feel like we healed a lot of pain dancing to August together around her pool during COVID, just secluded with that album, just listening to it. And it really healed her too. I think her and her husband got back together and they're very happy now. And I think folklore and all of that really, really helped heal her too. And I watched, not my sister has always been a Swiftie, but I watched a Swiftie in being made. Like I really saw her fall into Taylor. Like she's always loved her. But after the
Mhm.
folklore album, it was like every song is the best song. And then going into Evermore, I when I laid down and listened to Evermore, I cried the entire album because I thought we were going to get a breakup announcement with her and Joe. I was sure that they were
Oh,
going to break up.
yeah.
And now that we know When You're Losing Me was written, that was the end of the relationship, was Evermore. And I felt that so hardcore to the point where I was almost like, oh my God, maybe like this is going to sound so dumb, but my husband and I were still having issues,
Hmm.
but we're so happy and in love. The issues are they're much better and we're really good at working them out now because let's
Yeah.
face it, after
And lots of
11 years, you're
practice.
best friends with someone too now. Now you're still attacking each other in the hallways, but you're also still their best friend. So it's a little bit
Yeah.
different now. But I would say that, yeah, during the Evermore era, I was maybe able to, I was feeling like, oh my God, should I walk away? Should I start again? Should I do that? Like, am I letting their damage me and carrying that baggage up my street? Like, is it impossible for two artists to be together? And I was like, Taylor's leaving, like why am I not breaking up when she is? Like, it just seemed weird to me because always it had worked so much like that. But I just
Hmm.
really held on through Evermore. I found other things in her music. I was just really brokenhearted. Evermore, Tortured Poets has temporarily dethroned Evermore. But even being a Swiftie my whole life, well, her whole life, her whole music career, Evermore stood at the top for me. It knocked red. It was just an album. The lyricism, the writing in that album was second to none. It got way less praise than it deserved, in my opinion.
Hmm.
It was an insanely incredible album. Is an insanely incredible album. Torture Poets might have temporarily dethroned it, but I see Evermore coming back to my number one, just Cowboy Like Me, get out of here, dude. Like, and that matched now with I Can Fix Him. Like, put Cowboy Like Me and I Can Fix Him together. Oh, like, and then, you know, now she's just changing my life with her freaking mashups. But yeah, I would say that the Evermore album for me was a sad and confusing album, but I loved the writing of it so much. Like, yeah, it, like I said, it became my favorite, but I was very sad. I felt like we were going to get an announcement. I did.
Yeah.
And when I heard Midnights, I was sure of it. Everyone was arguing with me. And like,
And
yeah.
it's like, these are not the songs of a woman who is happily in a 6-year relationship. No.
No, and it was a woman with songs like Tolerated and stuff like that. I heard every word. Like,
Right.
it was a woman who wanted so badly to stay, who loved this man so much, but just couldn't anymore. You're losing me. I can't find a pulse. Like, and I actually did use some of those lyrics on my husband here and there. You know, I can't find a pulse. Please make sure my heart keeps starting for you. Like, that's important. That's an important thing.
Right.
Like, if my heart won't start for you anymore, it's done. So, like, that's your job too in the relationship and vice versa, to make sure that your partner's heart, you know, that the pulse is always there. And I already knew that. I already knew she had broken up with him. I was sure of it. I was not surprised at all when the announcement came out. I was honestly just waiting for it. Everyone was like, oh, it's this and it's that about Midnights and all that. And I'm just like, no, dude. Like, she's telling us she's going out. She's telling us that she's been too good of a girl. Like, she's done. We saw her up on the stage and, you know, anti-hero. She's like, I'm the problem. I'm the reason all my relationships are over. I'm the reason I break up. You know, anyways, Evermore was a sad, beautiful album. Sad, beautiful, tragic.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And during the pandemic, were you able to keep up your career quite a bit, or did you sort of seclude yourself into a lot of writing, or did you take any time off at all?
I did a lot of writing. I wasn't, it was crazy because, also I was going to go to the Lover Fest and that all got shut down. And then I had a lot of shows booked and those all got canceled. I did think that it would affect my career, but I kind of followed what Taylor did on her website and started putting out more merch and doing more launches and stuff like that. And I actually ended up doing quite well over COVID. And I had some silences and I wrote what I hope is going to be my bestseller. It's coming out next year. It's called Divinica. It's 154,000 word novel. And it is good. It has beautiful art attached to it as well. And yeah, so I wrote that during COVID with Taylor in my ear. You hear her in all my books. All my girls love her in my books.
Love it.
I definitely, she's the soundtrack of my life. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And so many people too. And I know everybody feels like that's her power. You know, everyone feels like they have that personal thing with her. And I think that's just what's so amazing. Like, all true Swifties are like, yeah, she sings what I'm going through. And like, even if you're not exactly going through that, there's still something in there that's totally going to heal you and help you as well. So,
yeah, I think that's part of what a lot of, especially like professionals, people who really know music, say about what Taylor does is she has this gift for making things so specific, they're universal.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And because even if the detail itself is so specific that it doesn't match with your personal experience, it evokes such a identifiable emotion.
That's right.
That you can then relate it back to anything of your own experience, which is so incredible. And I think she really ties together that whole experience that people have listening to her music in the song You're on Your Own, Kid. Which is funny because that song is about being on your own. Has tied the Swiftie family together more tight-knit than ever. All of us being like, yeah, we're on our own, except we're not.
All together.
Exactly.
Yeah. Boy, you're on your own, kid. Yeah. I felt that song, dude. Me and my sister were listening to that song bawling. Also, I love how she plays in that album. Like, I love her cryptic realities.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was down. I've had a lot of fights over the years. She's caused me a lot of arguments during the Reputation era. During all
Mm-hmm.
that crap, I had some real wars with people I knew over that. And I think same with Midnight's caused me some arguments too. I was like, no, I know it. Everyone was
Right.
like, don't say it unless she says it. And I'm like, yeah, it's true. That is my rule. But
But then again, you have to ask yourself, isn't everything she puts out on an album, in fact, the statements that she
that's
has
right. What
most
she's saying.
curated for us, the things that she says in interviews, she could flub up. She
That's
could
right.
say something she didn't want the public to know. She could misphrase something that could later be
Exactly.
misinterpreted. But what goes on to her album, the lyrics of the songs, the
No
liner
fault.
notes, the prologue and epilogue in the jacket, those things are the words that Taylor has curated
That's right.
as the scripture, as this is what I want you to take away.
That's right.
And even though, because it's music, because it's poetry, it has a lot of room for speculation. Whenever people want to argue about things that are in the lyrics, I'm like, this is what you can't
Yeah.
argue about.
Yeah.
She said this,
Yeah.
and she meant to say it.
Yeah.
She rewrote this, reviewed it many, many times,
Yeah,
and
she
this is
says
what
what
she
she
meant
means.
for us to hear.
She means
Exactly.
what she says.
None of it is accidental.
Yeah, that's right. None of it is. And it was very clear to me in Midnight's. I was hardly unsurprised. In fact, whatever. I'm not going to go into my deep Taylor theories, but I was assuming she was dating somebody
Right.
else. And I was enraged again with the whole Maddie Healy thing that happened. I was so mad at her fans. I don't care who she dates. I dig up
Right.
some guy from under a rock. If he loves you and you love him, just screeching
Like, date a
tires.
stagehand.
But like, shut up, like, why do people, yeah, maybe he's not the best guy. And, but that's something people need to figure out for themselves. I had so many people tell me about Eric. Oh, he's an alcoholic. He'll never change. He's a party boy. He's e-bass. He's a womanizer. He's all these things, which maybe he was all those things. I'll admit that he was definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So what? He stopped drinking for me. He changed everything for me. He hasn't, now
Right.
he can socially, he changed everything because it's a mindset. It's jet lag
Yeah.
is a choice.
It's a choice,
It's,
right?
He managed to overcome so many things because of love and because he wanted to be with me. And I had so many people tell me he was the wrong man for me. I had so many friends shake their heads saying, God help her. Because everybody knew him in the industry and everybody knew the guy that he was. He was definitely the drink on stage type of dude. He would sit there and pump out the best drawing you've ever seen on a bottle of rum. And that, Maddie Healy, but he told Taylor that she reformed him and, she loved him. She fell in love. And again, with the Swifties and their judgment, like performing soliloquies she'll never see. Just the most judgmental creeps who say they want the best for her. It's nobody's business but hers. It's nobody else's. And I think that really, really hurt her again. I think strike 3 and we're out. That was strike 2. One more thing that we do to her like that, I think she is going to burn her whole life down than listen to one more second of the bitching and moaning. I really do. Because the pain that she must go through each time something like that happens, I know my pain on a tiny little scale with the reviews and the things she says about me. It keeps me up at night. To have millions of people bashing the guy you love, ouch. It doesn't matter how much you say you don't care. That shit hurts.
Right.
So,
well, and I think
we're out.
Exactly. She's put us on notice with Who's Afraid of Little Old Me, right? But Daddy, I Love Him. She's like, I am this close to burning it all down.
Yeah, y'all motherfuckers better shut the fuck up. And I literally could not agree more. It happened during the Midnights. It happened after Joe. Oh, he cheated on her. Oh, he this. Oh, he that. Shut up. And he also addressed the cheating rumors. And Taylor never said he cheated on her. Maybe he did. Maybe they did. Who cares? It's nobody's business. That's the problem, where everyone's like, oh, it's a celebrity. It's their public business. Okay. But then you don't really love her. You do only want grave for her. You don't want something beautiful for her. So you can't be a real fan. You just want to judge the choice of the man she loves.
Right. Well, and one of the craziest things is that all celebrities are subjected to some level of relationship scrutiny.
Not like Taylor.
Not like Taylor. That's the thing, is nobody asks, nobody heard please, please, please and said that Sabrina needs to break up with her
No,
boyfriend.
that's right. But if Taylor had done that, the outcry across the world, like she
Right.
said,
If they would be like, if you're telling him not to embarrass you, motherfucker, then why are you still dating him? But Sabrina can release that song just fine.
That's right.
Nobody cares.
Because you have edge, she never did. And what I really heard in that line too, which was so powerful, that whole song. But what I really heard in that line was Taylor saying, I do have edge. Are you kidding me? I've had the edge this whole time. They're copying my edge, is what I heard in that line. She's got edge. She never did. It's like, you didn't let me have that edge. I had to fight to have that edge. And I think most women can feel that, like, whether you're in the arts or you're a stay-at-home mom, you're fighting for that edge. And they gave it to Sabrina. Sabrina didn't get launched as America's good girl. Taylor did. And that was unfortunate.
Which is crazy because Sabrina still has somehow managed to find that America's sweetheart status, and she did not have to be a saint to do it.
That's right. Which
shows... and Taylor drew the map.
Well, yeah, her hands, my bare hands carved that path. It was 17 years ago. Sabrina Carpenter would not have been able to launch with It's That Me Espresso 17 years ago. There's no way.
She would not have been able to go on stage at 24 years old in the outfit she wears.
Yeah, there's no way.
No
it was way. Taylor who did all of that. And so
exactly.
Yeah, I really heard that too. Like, she's like, dude, I've got fucking edge. Watch me with my edge. I think Taylor is edgy and sexy and naughty and just so fucking powerful. Like, to me, all of the rest is just noise. She is She glows. I've seen her in real life, close up, 16 feet away, 10 feet away. That woman I see people's auras for sure. I've never seen an aura like that. She glows like an angel, like the Madonna statue. She's got light coming out the top of her head.
Yeah.
She's an incredible human being. So, like, the rest is just noise, really, at this point. I am so sorry that it broke her up. I am so sorry because, sure, he was the coward who did claim he was a lion, and I have no time for that.
Yeah.
But it hurt him. He might have
stayed
with her. But the Swifties can be very vitriolic. And yeah, maybe they were all right. Okay. And maybe Taylor thinks so too. She did say a lot of this was self-inflicted. She did say that.
Yeah.
And maybe they were right, but it doesn't even matter. It's like your family telling you not to be with someone. You're like, I don't care if you're right. I have 4 sisters. They're very verbal about what they think. But it's like, in the end of the day, I'm the one going to bed with him. I'm the one in love with him. I'm the one who hears the pillow talk, not you. God knows the words they never heard. God knows the words they never heard. And that's like, oh my God, Torture Poets Department. This album. That's it for me. There will never be another artist like Taylor Swift. I am so grateful. If I had to go through all the crap I went through in my life to live in her era. People do ask me what era I would like to live in. And I used to say the 1830s, but without all the racists, because I used to say I want to live in those freezing castles, but without the freezing castle, and with working plumbing and with good people. I want to live in Bridgerton's world. You know what I mean?
Same.
With people who are allowed to love whoever they want and be with whoever they want. But now I'm just grateful to live in 2024 in the era that is Taylor Swift. I would pick no other era but hers. Even over Athena, even over Shakespeare, even over Emily Bronte or anyone I love, I would pick to live with her. And I would pick any pain to go through to live in this era as well, because being alive in her lifetime is epic. Like, if my husband could have been alive when if Elvis could still be alive for my man, like if he could have gotten to see Elvis live, I mean, Elvis is a massive part of his life, like a huge part of his soul, good and bad, of Elvis. He understands the good and he understands the bad and all, but that passion and how he sings and the beauty of it. If he could have lived in the era of Elvis, that would be his one biggest wish. And for me, I get to live in the time of her. I get to listen to something like Torture Poets Department. Get the hell out of here. That album it's a masterpiece, and it will be a masterpiece for 1,000 years, for 5,000 years. It'll be a masterpiece. It'll be like Sappho's poems.
But time, doesn't it give you perspective?
Yeah. Love her.
Absolutely.
Also, that
Love her
Who's Afraid of
so
Little
much.
Old Me, that song, You Wouldn't Last an Hour in the Asylum Where They Raised Me, I think was just a very powerful thing for me to hear 17 years after leaving that cult. It really
Yeah.
smacked me in the face. Like it was like, and it's not that I don't it's just that it's like it was just another example of her really hearing people without even hearing them. And I do think it's
Yeah.
so funny that people like, You Wouldn't Last an Hour, and they put up Barney or whatever. And I do think that's really hilarious for people as well, because it's like, for some people, it's like, oh, my life was really good and this line didn't hit, but the song hit enough for me to make this. You know what I mean? So something
Yeah.
still resonated so hard in there, even if it wasn't necessarily what did with me in that particular song. But oh my God, that song. And then the way she screams it on stage was a
Oh, just
transformative experience.
spectacular. Absolutely. I do want to ask you a question real quick. Please pardon the pun. I hope this question doesn't insult you. But what uh what would you have to say to anyone who says that you left one cult to join another?
Oh, I get asked all the time. This was a cult I joined. That's my answer. I was born into that one. I joined this one voluntarily. So I'm voluntarily having the brainwash put on me. The hard part about being born into a cult is you have no choice over your circumstance. You're just thrust into something. I received the most ribbing about it at home. My husband, who is, by the way, a total closeted Swiftie, he gives me
Yeah.
so much crap about it all the time. But if it is, like I was going to tell you right before we started the call, I have been, my lifelong search is the study of gods and goddesses and our ancient past and even our recent past. And because I was grown up so much on biblical lore, I really do respect powers, supernatural powers of any kind. And so I love mythology, and I did fall very deep into mythology. And what defined a goddess was what she could bring to her populace. So Athena was the goddess of women because she could weave and because she knew things about finances and she was smart. Who knew what she could really do? Maybe she was a witch. Maybe she could transfer herself. Maybe she could, maybe she was part of transfiguration, but the people who were part of her cult didn't see that. They just all learned how to weave. So they all became
Hmm.
weavers. You know what I mean? They just
Yeah.
all learned how to do something cool from that goddess. And what defined a goddess was the amount of people worshiping her. And they were called cults. The cult of Athena, the cult of Aphrodite, the cult of Bacchus, these all existed. That's actually where the etymology of the word stems from. And it's respecting
Hmm.
someone who gives you their power by giving you either strength or something technical that you can do or whatever. Like, basically, my whole theory is you could be a goddess. You take your cell phone back 1,000 years with your beauty. People back then were having a rougher
Hmm.
life. So with how beautiful you are and with your cell phone, you'd be more powerful than anybody because all of a sudden you have a device that can tell you where the stars are. You know what I mean? So it's very
Yes.
defined based on, and Taylor Swift is 100% our modern goddess. And the church of Taylor Swift is a very interesting thing in that people do recite her lyrics like scripture. And the way that
Hmm.
scripture impacts people, Christians all over the world that do wild, random things, other people are also impacted by Swift's lyrics that way. And I think the really incredible thing that really does make her second to none is the amount of people she can do that for. Most goddesses
Yes.
or cult leaders, there's a finite amount of people that are going to believe you're hooey. There are millions of people all over the world that are just lost in her beauty. And I think that is what makes her just more powerful than almost any other living being. Has anyone
Yeah.
ever been loved at that quantity? Has that many people ever been spoken to by one single human being? I just don't think so. I just don't think it's ever happened
No.
before.
Yeah. And I also think part of what's really interesting for me, and as someone who grew up agnostic, and I've always been a very spiritual person, but I've never been a part of any church or anything like that. Um, and when people will, ask me, oh, how can you worship Taylor Swift over God? I tell them all the time, because she is a person who I can prove existed, who openly admits that she is flawed.
That's right.
I That to me is far more believable and followable than an infallible, unprovable deity.
That's true. That's true. And even with Taylor Swift's flaws, and probably what will happen over time, in my opinion, she has no flaws. In my opinion, she's just perfect. But even with the things like that she would call her own earthquakes or her own disasters, even in those, there's a perfection. Like even in those,
Exactly.
it needed to happen. Otherwise, like you were saying with the Kanye situation, had that not happened, had she not broken in that way, had that not all happened, it's kind of like my life. Had that not happened to me, would I be the person that I am now? No, I wouldn't be. And you must go through the breaks and the cracks and the shatters so that you can be made into that perfect version of yourself. And am I sad it hardened her a little bit? Yes, I am. But is that the cost of being a woman in this world? Yes, it is. And it's hard to see it happen to her. But in a way, the way I say I look back on my life and feel grateful, I think she probably does too. I think there's a gratefulness, like, thank you, Amy. Thank you. Because without you, there wouldn't be all of this. And again, with that song, I can relate it to so many people who tortured me in my life. I can say thank you to them because without you guys, there wouldn't be what I have. I wouldn't be where I am. And my sister too. Oh, I have one other sister who's been super rude about Taylor Swift, who like always listens to all the nasty media and is like, oh my God, how is she always with so many men? And by the way, I'm kind of going to preface it by saying that my sisters all have a lot of men too. So it's very pot kettle black. Her daughter is a massive Swiftie though, and I think has pulled her over. But Look What You Made Me Do, and then the Thank You, Amy song on Torture Poets Department went into my sister's soul and lived in her heart because she also grew up in the cult. And for her saying without you guys, there wouldn't be this, like for her, it was so transformative. It was so beautiful experience for her. And now she's got it too. Taylor will get you. You just have to listen to a few of her songs. She'll get you. It doesn't matter. And Thank You, Amy wasn't even my favorite song on the album. And it was the one that made my Swiftie hater's sister a Swiftie. So
that's crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy how she'll resonate with people. Even now, she's still teaching me things and she's so much younger than me. She is really wise beyond her years.
Yeah.
Is really a mastermind. She's a one of a kind. She's amazing. My God.
That's awesome.
I think I'd be dead without her, honestly. I think that's the real take from this podcast. I really think I would not have made it along the way if I wouldn't have had her words and her songs in my head in the dark times. And I think I'm probably not the only person that can say that.
Yeah. That's so incredible. And just recently you started sharing that journey, sharing that with other people on TikTok. How did you get started doing that?
Well, my mom listens to crap media. I'm not going to call them all out, but I made the first one because of that horrible article, which was from like Rolling Stone, I think. And it was just so bad and so unfactual and so stupid. And they were actually talking about the thrifty Swiftie, Bethany, on there. They'd actually even talked about her and her breakup in that article. And we're like totally misquoted what happened. And she broke up with him because of this. And like, it was just all so stupid. So I initially made that video to be like, this is a load of crap. I think I even said like, watch people drop this on the barn floor. It was so bad.
Oh gosh.
A lot of people loved it. So I made another one for my mom. And then I just kept making them because I'm about to make one now, I think, that has to do with Joe Alwyn's comments. And I've been hearing people say things that aren't making me very happy. So I wanted to put something in there, to put a video up now, just to let people know that there's definitely always another side. And that it's a difference between someone who's being a hater and something that's a fact that now we've heard from both Taylor and Joe. So like,
exactly.
And if he took a long time to say it, that's not really our business. Like maybe, that she was with someone else. Maybe that would have been disrespectful to say in that time. Like, I'm sure they're still in communication. I'm sure that they've spoken along the way. I'm sure they're not enemies. Taylor's a good person. She's not a bitch. Well, she can be a bit bitchy, but in good ways.
Only in the best way.
Yeah, in the best ways.
Yes.
Yeah, she's the best.
Well,
and all her crazy stuff with the Easter eggs is just nuts. It's like a game everyone plays on the side, which I love.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's part of the thing is she's so interactive. She gives us so many opportunities to be immersed outside of the music.
Yeah.
which I really think is what makes the difference between us being a fandom and being a community
Yeah.
or a cult,
Yeah.
is that
Ooh, I'll
it's
be a pro.
not, we're not just a fan of the music,
Yeah,
we're not just a fan of her. Being a part of the Swiftie fandom is a daily practice.
that's right.
You log on every day to see which outfit she wore at the Eras tour yesterday. If she tweets, you're going to spend the next hour counting how many O's she put in her so to see which album this is an Easter egg for. You know,
Dude.
all of this stuff, it's part of the religious practice that she inspires in people. And if you think about it, the only other thing that people really do that with is like Bible study.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Can I get a amen? Okay,
Tay
girl.
man.
Amen. Well, I mean, seriously
Yes.
though, and it's a worthy thing to follow. Her lyrics
Yeah.
are, and I can also use it as kind of a social judge. If someone tells me, especially if a dude tells me they hate Taylor Swift, I don't mean to be a bitch, but I automatically kind of know what kind of person they are. I'm like, oh, is it
Exactly.
because she rankles you? Is it because she's telling you off? Is it because you
Hmm.
don't know how to get the girl?
Yeah, exactly. I do something whenever I meet new people or a new group of people, I do something I call my Swift check. Which is where I will casually find a way to bring Taylor Swift up in conversation. Like, I won't come in and be like, oh, I'm such a huge Swiftie or whatever, but I will like use whatever topic of conversation
Me
is
too.
going on and low key find a way to make a one line comment about
Yeah.
Taylor Swift. And of course, the hope is that somebody's going to perk up, right?
Right.
And be like, oh my gosh. But the truth is that most of the time, either there's no reaction at all, or people are like, oh, Taylor Swift. Like, yeah. And then I'm like, I already know what group of people I'm in. These are
Yeah.
not my people.
But it just proves her thriving power. Like my son is 15, almost 16. All his
Mm-hmm.
friends, all the girlfriends and even the guy friends, everybody loves her. Even in
That's
the,
awesome.
she's got a whole new crop of fans coming, a whole new fan base as
Exactly.
well that's going to love her music and listen to it like the way that we did with the music, like the way that I did with Stevie Nicks, because my mother loved her
Yeah.
so much. And Dolly Parton, Stevie Nicks and Dolly Parton, I grew up with those girls because my mother loved them. That was the music that I was
Yeah.
allowed to hear. That was my mother's hidden system music that she would like listen to
Right.
alone in her room. So that was like the only music. And maybe that's why Taylor Swift hit so hard. I feel like her and Stevie Nicks have some kind of linked
Mm-hmm.
star somewhere in the atmosphere above their heads. They're just
You look
so,
like Stevie Nicks in 75.
I mean, and she called it out too. And I've always thought that about her. I've really always
Yeah.
thought that. I've compared them a lot in my mind. I will say that I do love how Taylor's definitely managed to take control of her life, and something that's incredibly impressive to me. And I could be
Mm-hmm.
wrong, but I've been in Hollywood for 17 years as well, and staying clean, staying away from that life and that style of party is almost
Mm-hmm.
impossible when you're at that
Yeah,
level of fame. And
of
Taylor
course.
has managed to not fall into that particular rabbit hole. And I'm not saying she
Right.
hasn't partied. I don't know what she's done. She could be a wild girl,
Yeah.
but she's found a way to also not let it affect her work. Like normal people who go out
Right.
and they
I think
party.
she enjoys a substance. Obviously, she enjoys her alcohol,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and sometimes a little much, but never to a sloppy degree.
No.
And
And
I
it's too
believe
much.
that perhaps she's enjoyed some other recreational substances at some point, but she's never
Well, she
made
does
it
sing
a
about
part of her
weed a lot.
life.
Yeah. No, well, she's never let it affect her work. So lots of people who have
Yes.
normal lives, again, put it in an office scenario. They go out over the weekend, they go to Coachella, they party, they do stuff, but they're back in the office Monday morning ready to focus. And that's what
Exactly.
I feel a lot of celebrities that I've known, people I grew up with, they're not back ready to focus. They are sloppy, they are messy, they are off their lines, they can't hold a tune. Taylor
Yeah.
is so dedicated, even if she did go out and party. Who cares what she did? I've done it all. So I have no judgment from me.
Yeah.
Drink, be merry. No one deserves to get drunk more than that girl. Seriously, she
Yeah.
deserves all of it. And the fact that it's even, an issue, really, people, yeah, it's just because she's a woman and because she's Taylor Swift. But her incredible dedication, the way she gets up on that stage, like I've seen
Yeah.
her perform for the last 17 years, and it's just, she gets more dedicated. I've watched other people perform over the last 17 years. I go to concerts often, and they do not get more dedicated. They start phoning it in. They start holding out the microphone for the audience to sing. Taylor is getting harder, hitting her marks better. Just she's excels every single time she comes to work, and it is so impressive.
Yes.
On top of everything else, her work ethic is inspirational. So it's another thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
She's
she
the
just
best.
gives us so much to look up to and look forward to and be a part of. And part of what's so amazing about that is, at this point, I feel like the Swiftie community has taken on a life of its own.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with or without Taylor, we have a community now that can hold us together for the rest of our lives, and a community that I think will exist very strongly for, you know, decades or centuries after Taylor leaves this world. And it's just so incredible to be a part of that, and to get to experience, like you said before, being in this time in history and everything like
even
that.
if we can't touch her, at least we can be part of her temple. We're just priestesses from afar. God, in another life, I know she's my best friend. One day,
I know,
somewhere,
right?
she's going to love my novel. She's going to be like, this is so good. And then she's going to find me. I know it. And I'm going to be like dead.
Someday. Tay, blessings be upon you.
I know. It's been so close. So close.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it has been so amazing having you here to talk about all of this today. And I love how spiritual Taylor is for you. I know that that's something that you and I both really share. That's something that we connected on at the beginning.
Yeah.
And so I hope that in the future, once your book stuff dies down, that you and I will get together and do some manuscript study for the podcast, share that with everybody, really deep dive into the scripture of Taylor Swift, and have some fun with that.
We have to call it like
that's something that
Swiftsure. Swift. There's a word in there.
We'll have to work on the title, but to all 12 of our current existing subscribers, hopefully that's something you can look for a few months down. But this has been such an amazing conversation. I really look forward to getting to have more conversations with you in the future. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
It was wonderful.
I'm glad you really enjoyed it.
It's just amazing to find someone. It's like you're bonded in love. One thing before we leave the podcast that I want to say about Taylor Swift. People can say what they want about the 7 husbands of Evelyn Hugo. But I think something so powerful about Taylor Swift is that despite the earthquakes and the pain and the agony and what has probably been 15 years, 15 million tears, she is relentless in her pursuit of love. She is so brave. She is relentless. She's just like, you'll find someone, I'll find someone in So Long London. And she's still holding out for hope. A greater woman wouldn't beg, but I looked to the sky and said, please, I've been on my knees. It's so powerful. The fact that she's like, look, I want this and I want this. Sometimes women are told that we can't have both or that we shouldn't ask for both. But Taylor is showing such bravery in asking for her career, but also for someone to love her and to share her company. And she has been relentless in the pursuit of it. And I can't imagine what it must be like to try and date as Taylor Swift. It must just be horror upon horror. The jackals raise their hackles. You couldn't conceive it. And instead of cowering away, instead of hiding away, she tries every single time. With the whole Travis Kelce that's happening now, she's showing us like, I'm relentless and I'm brave and this is what I want. And I want someone to love me and I'm going to go after it. And I think for so many women who have had so many heartbreaks and so many shatters, it's a super powerful lesson that to watch her, if she can do it, if she can keep the bravery, if she cannot abandon hope, then how much more for every other woman out there who's still holding on, like, if she can do it, anyone can do it because she has all the obstacles.
Right.
And she's relentless.
Absolutely.
And she's so brave. And she must not feel brave, but she's so brave. Yeah.
She is. And I did actually a TikTok about that a few weeks ago where I pointed out, you know, people so often look at songs like Fresh Out the Slammer and say, well, why didn't she just leave? Why didn't she just leave sooner? Why didn't she leave when she wrote You're Losing Me?
Nice.
And one of the things that I pointed out in that TikTok is that we as Swifties see her in all of her divinity. You know, we see her as so powerful, so infallible. And because of that, we believe that she is able to walk into any
Yeah.
room and tell anyone what to do, and they're just going to snap to and do it and never question her. But the truth is that the people who are closest to Taylor, her team from UMG, her Tree, her parents, her management team, 13 management, those people who are in front of her every day, her coworkers in her office, they are not reinforcing that goddess feeling.
That's right.
For her. It is actually, in fact, their job to remind her of every vulnerability at all times.
Yeah. Like the guy that used to hold the laurel over the Caesar's head and say, you are only a man. In a way, that's kind of what they do for her.
Exactly. So it's hard for us to conceive that she may not believe that she can do whatever she wants. But the truth is that the people who are in front of her every day are telling her, you know, you really can't. You really can't, because we have to evaluate every little ramification before you do anything.
Like, are they secondhand embarrassed that I can't get out of bed because something counterfeit is dead? Like, are they are even the people closest to me? Are even they over it? Are even they're over it now? You know, like.
And so we have to remind ourselves that as much as we tell her that she's amazing, that isn't always the narrative that is in her ear on the daily.
Yeah.
And
it should be. Taylor, you're so amazing.
It should be. And I think that on Tortured Poet, she's finally starting to find a way to block out the noise and create her own narrative in her head. You know, Tortured Poets is such a journey because she goes from, you know, breakup songs, devastation songs, songs about the longest relationship she's had, songs about the shortest relationship she's ever had. And then, you know, tucked in near the very end of the album is the only love song Taylor has ever written with no hint of apprehension in it. So High School is the only love song Taylor has ever written that does not have at least one line that says, what if this goes wrong?
Yeah.
So maybe we're finally getting there. I think
we still see it a little bit in So High School.
We're so close, but
we're almost there.
I hope that the next album will maybe finally have some romantic abandon on it that is truly.
Yeah, I hope so. I do think in So High School, she says, she's still saying like, when I broke, it's kind of that whole concept, when he broke my heart, you fixed it. Because even in So High School, she says, do that impression of your dad again. I'm hearing voices like a madman. So, the past is creeping up. I'm getting afraid. Do that impression of your dad again. Make me
remind me why you're different.
Yeah, show me the funny. Show me the American Pie on a Saturday night. You know, like the voices are screaming in my head. The past is creeping in. Do that quickly. You know, I do it sometimes too. I have a bad dream. I run in and ask my husband, like, show me what you're working on. Tell me something funny. Be with me for a few minutes. Do that impression you did.
Just to get my brain to shut off or to switch back into a better mode. Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, I think, and it was interesting because in the album, she didn't say she loved him yet. And I'm wondering.
No, not yet.
I haven't heard it yet, right? She does say he's the one that I want, as opposed to he's the one that I love. In Daddy, I love him, right? When it comes to Travis, she says,
yes.
Right? So not particularly did she say it yet. And so I'm agreeing that I think in the next album we get, hopefully, unless it's Karma. But in the next album that we get, I do think we're going to see a lot more of that, where she's actually going to say if she loves him or not. You know, like I think we'll hear that, and we'll hear it from her, and we'll hear it in a song, because that's the only way I ever have told myself, okay, she's in love. Like with Joe, I thought, okay, she loves him. I was rooting for them. But I also didn't think, how can that work? There are two different people under the same galaxy. There are two different stars trying to exist in the same galaxy. Like
He
She
was
does
a
need to
hot
be
house
with.
flower to her outdoorsman.
She does need
It
to be
just
with
never
a
worked
loud
out.
American. Like she
Yeah.
is. Oh, she already said she's the loudest woman this town has ever seen. And in England, she must have been a fish out of water. I left all that I
Yeah,
knew.
for
You
sure.
left me in the house by the heath. She wasn't. That's not her people. Her people are there, and
Yeah, for sure.
she found them too. They're all there in the stands, clapping for
They are.
football. Those
They
are
are.
her people.
Those
All
are
right,
her
girl. Well,
people.
thank you.
Okay. This has been such an incredible conversation. I really hope that we get to have you on the show again in
Thank
the
you so much.
future.
I'll
Of
share it as
course.
soon as it
Thank
comes
you.
out. Thank you,
I
guys.
thank you. You're welcome. Thank you for sharing your story with us. It's such an interesting journey from being completely closed off to the world to Taylor opening up your heart and mind to help you make sense of all of it. And now you are a multi-time award-winning novelist with a brand new book on the horizon. Can you tell us a little bit about your book before you go?
Yes, I can actually. It's about a girl who is living she actually wakes up in a mental institution in Germany. She's got tattoos covering her body, and the earth is in a state of apocalypse every 13 days. 13 for my goddess. Every 13 days, geometric storms, red waves hit the planet, and they wipe everyone's memory. Husbands forget
Wow.
wives, daughters, mothers forget daughters. Like the world is in chaos. And
Okay.
Dominica wakes up in a world with no memory. And she, using basically the tattoos on her body, are star portals. And they pull her through the timelines of 13 goddesses from 13 different pantheons of mythology. These goddesses cast a spell on the earth that when humans were destroying it enough, this savior device, these red waves, this geometric storms would hit the earth, wipe everyone's memory, because without memory, there's no lust, there's no pain, there's no death, and the earth would be able to heal.
Ah,
Divinica is kind of supreme being and needs to unlock it. There's also a love story in the novel. Valence is our guy, and he was on Mars. He's an astronaut, and he was on Mars when the first red wave hit the planet. So he saw what happened, but he wasn't a part of it. So when he comes back to Earth, the red waves don't affect him. You had to be part of the initial blast. The red waves. So he has his memories, and he falls in love with Divinica, but every 13 days she forgets him. She has no idea who he is. So he's been in love with her for 2 years. And it's their story and basically trying to break this spell. It's actually going to be a 3-part series, and it's a graphic novel series already out right now, drawn by Dawn McTeague. She's an incredible artist. And my husband, when I can get him, does amazing work for it as well, Eric Basseldor.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. It sounds fascinating.
It'll be good.
Can't wait for the next bit of it to come out. That's always the best.
And it has lots of Taylor references all throughout the novel. Any Swiftie who reads my novel will find themselves. I put it all over.
Love it. Yes, and we know Swifties love finding Taylor references in novels. So everyone who's listening right now, run over and buy one of her books off of Amazon. They're amazing. JP Roth. Thank you so much for coming on the show with us. And if our listeners want to find you on socials, where should they look?
I'm JP Rothick or JP Roth on all Instagrams. On TikTok, I'm JP Roth, and on Instagram, I'm JP Rothick.
Okay. Awesome. Well, everybody head on over and follow her. If you would like to follow me, your host, Caitlin Sayers,
you
can
Caitlin,
find
you're
me
amazing.
Oh, thank you.
This podcast is amazing. What a cool thing to do. I love that you're bringing her life into other people's journeys. I think it's very powerful. What a good idea.
I really appreciate
that. It really
that.
is the manuscript of our lives. Like it really is. Now and then we read the manuscript, and it's all with Taylor's soundtrack, and it's just beautiful.
It is.
Thank you.
It really, really is. You're so welcome. Thank you. And if you want to follow me, your host on TikTok and Instagram, I am Caitlin Sayers Says on TikTok, Instagram. And then if you would like to follow the podcast on TikTok, Instagram, and X in order to get snippets and previews of the new episodes, hear when new episodes come out, and see a little bit of additional content, you can follow us at TS Manuscript Pod on TikTok, Instagram, and X. So go on over, follow us on all of those. Make sure to follow us on Spotify. If you're hearing this on YouTube or somewhere else and you're having trouble finding us on Spotify, try typing in Taylor Swift Manuscript, the story of us. And that does help it come up on Spotify a little bit easier.
Perfect.
But thank you again for joining us, Joanna. I am so happy to have you. And thank you to all of our listeners for taking the time to listen to the Manuscript Story of Us as told by Taylor Swift. We will be back again in 2 weeks with another unique Swiftie story. And you can follow us on Spotify to make sure you never miss an episode. We have Manuscript Mondays on the first and third Monday of every month. And if you would like to be a guest on the Manuscript podcast, you would like to come on like our lovely author here and talk to me and tell your Swiftie journey, you can submit an application to be a guest from our link tree, which is linktree.com/TS Manuscript Pod. I can't wait to meet even more of you incredible Swifties, because I may have started this podcast, but the story isn't mine anymore. Thank you so much for listening.